So here we go. So years and years ago, I remember I was on the way to a social event, and I thought I knew where I was going. Okay, I thought so. Then I got lost. So what we did in the old days, when you got lost, is what would you do? No, I'm a man. Men don't ask for directions. Yes. So you reach into the glove compartment very manly and you pull out the map, right? And then you try and read the map and figure out where you are. Okay. So you do that. But let me ask you, you ever been lost somewhere? You know, trying to drive. Well, now we got GPS, but you remember the days when you could be lost? Right? So you get lost. How does it feel? Doesn't feel very good, right? You could be literally around the corner from your destination, and you could be feeling scared, anxious, nervous, worried, angry, hurt, frustrated, resentful, all those things, right? Then you pull out the map, and you start to figure out where you are, and suddenly now what happens? Now that you know, or if you have your GPS, you plug in your GPS, you program it, and then it starts to calculate, it begins to give you directions. What change do you feel in that moment? Now you feel relief. Now you're happy, etc. Whether you're 20 miles away or around the corner, right? The feeling goes from darkness to light, from curse to blessing. And what changed? You didn't move. The car's still in the same place. Perception, consciousness. That's why we affirm every Sunday, consciousness is everything. Because consciousness determines what we get out of life. So it doesn't matter where we are, because all of us have felt lost at some point or other if you're not feeling it now. We feel lost. I don't know what to do with my family. Have some issue in the family. I've heard that from students before. Or now you look at the world. What's going to be with the future? What's going on? Who knows? Is my business going to survive? Will I have enough money? Will the Social Security last? Are they going to pay out? Is the government going to shut down? We hear all these things. What about my business? I just heard there's a competitor opening up something, or they came up with some new innovation. So in one way or another, we're all feeling lost somewhere. And we're feeling all of those negative emotions. So in the same way in the physical world, there's that GPS. Wouldn't we like to have a spiritual GPS? They'd be the same thing. They would be able to direct us from wherever we are, lost, that once we start to plug into it, suddenly we can already feel better. Even if we have not yet moved, but we can start to feel better. Wouldn't that be amazing? So we're selling them in the bookstore. No. Okay. That would be great. That would be great, wouldn't it? It's better than that. You don't even have to buy it. Because God already gave us a spiritual GPS. If you think about it, if God created us in its image and likeness, and the Creator, as we teach in the Kabbalah, in the classes, is complete and absolute fulfillment, totally blissed out, then when we received a piece of the Creator that we call our soul, and the light of the Creator that's in our soul, what came with it? Just like a GPS, right? You don't have to program the GPS to know all the maps, right? Basically, wherever you are in the world, the maps are already inside. The directions, etc., are already there. All you have to do is say, this is where I am, and this is where I want to go, and then the GPS will direct you there. So then the same thing. When God programmed our soul, God put everything that we could ever want beyond that for total and absolute bliss. I mean, right now, how many of you have something in your mind, you say, you know what, if I just got this or this happened, I'd be so great. I'd be so happy. It would be amazing. Any of you? Right. We can think of one thing, two things. Well, if that's us, how much more does the Creator think? Already for us. How much more has the Creator already given us? So we're thinking a few more things. But you get those few things like you've done in the past. You get those few things, you're relieved for a while, and then what happens after a week, a day, 6 months? Now what? Now you realize you're still not yet at your final destination. So then there's a few more things, right? Because right now, what are we generally looking for? Give me some relief now. Give me what I want now so I'll feel some sense of peace. Because as I hear every Sunday, that's what God wants for me. That's what God set out. So if I get this and this and this and this, I'll feel blissed out. That's wonderful. Unfortunately, until we get to our 100%, there's always going to be something more. And that's what I want us to keep in mind. As we keep our thoughts on the Creator, that it is everything and gave us everything, then in essence, the beginning and the end of our journey is identical for every human being. We began with the Creator in the endless world. We began with the understanding that we're filled with the infinite light of the Creator. We've been already given all the resources. We are lacking nothing. The ultimate destination and the reason why we came into the physical world was to manifest all that light, to manifest all those blessings. Because if it only remains potential, if it only remains a dormant thought inside of us or a dormant resource, what good is it? Nothing. It's worthless. Worthless. Like we often go back to, if you had $50 million cash, but it was on a deserted island in the middle of the ocean for all the rest of your life, what good is the money? It's worthless. It has dormant energy. It has potential energy when you can bring it here, right, to this world, Boca or wherever you are on Facebook. If you bring it off the deserted island into a city, into a place, then you can spend it and it becomes manifest. But sitting on that deserted island, it's only potential. It's dormant energy. So the same, if the light of the Creator only stays in our soul and we never bring it out, we never make use of it, we never find a way, if you will, to spend it, then it brings us nothing other than frustration. Because imagine, if you took somebody who didn't understand what money was and you put them on the island with a bunch of pieces of paper we call $50 million, doesn't change their life at all, does it? Because they don't understand money. They don't grasp that it's a potential to do certain things or to give them certain things. But you and I, if we're there and we're suddenly dropped on that island with $50 million and we're stuck, what does the $50 million do? You say it does nothing, but it brings us a certain frustration, a certain level of anxiety, right? Because if I could take this home, think what I could do. I could buy this car, I could do this thing, I could pay off my debts, I could share with my family. So we actually have frustration. So when we came into this world, what was our goal? Same goal for everybody. Heaven on earth, infinite bliss. Infinite bliss. Not one person on earth is not destined for that. So if the beginning and the end are the same for every human being, then what's life about? The journey in between. The journey between the beginning and the end. And who decides which route you take? We do. We decide. It's just like with the GPS, right? I've seen them now. Now they've got them so fancy and they have all these apps. You can say which way you want to go. Do you want to go the 95? Do you want to go the turnpike? Do you want to go this way or that way? And the GPS will just tell you. So the Kabbalists teach us, the Zohar, it's written, the way we decide to go, the universe will push us that way. It will support us in that. So when a person is thinking selfishly, negatively, etc., that's the way the universe will push them and show them all the results of that. If a person chooses to go in the way of sharing, caring, love, compassion, and kindness, then the universe will support that. Because just like the streets in Boca, any which way you turn, there's a street there, and it will take you on its street, right? So you turn right somewhere, that street is there, it'll take you exactly where you wanted to go, to the right, right? But then if you turn left on that street, then that street will take you where you want to go. So there is a spiritual GPS. The issue becomes, just like the GPS in your car. Have you never, ever been with somebody, because it's not you, right? Been with somebody in the car, the GPS says, go a quarter mile and turn right. And you hear the driver saying, no, that's not right. I know the area. You're supposed to go down there and you got to keep going straight. You don't turn right, right? And now you're arguing with the GPS. Talk about foolishness. Although I can already hear it. You know, they have Siri on your phone and you have this Alexa and different things like that. I can now already imagine there's going to be a GPS like that, where the driver's going to say, no, you're wrong. You go down there and you go straight. You don't go right. And the GPS is going to say, what, are you, an idiot? You don't think I know? Right? And it's going to have an argument now. That's where we're heading. Okay, I have to tell you this. So my daughter, somebody sent us, one of the students sent us a, one of these things, an Alexa. So, Alexa? Yes, okay, it's Alexa. So my daughter, she's so happy. My son programmed it, so she's, Alexa, play this song, and it plays. Alexa, play this song. Alexa, it's great. Now she has somebody else to order around. Okay, so, good thing she's not here. I'd be in big trouble. So one day I hear her from my bedroom, I hear her yelling, Alexa! The music is playing. Alexa! And it's still playing. Alexa! It's still playing. Alexa! And I'm thinking, great, she got her karma coming back, right? She doesn't listen to everything I say. Now Alexa's not listening to her. Okay. So where was I? All right. So we have this spiritual GPS, right? It's called our intuition. It's the voice of the Creator inside our soul. That's what it is. The issue is, like we're saying, listening to it. It's listening to it. Now, some of you and some people you know are born into this world with a little greater connection to that intuitive voice. We call them psychics or mediums, people who speak to the dead and things like that. And yes, before you ask, I do believe there are some people who are capable. I don't believe, to be frank with you, that everybody out there who says they are is real. That's a different issue. But I do believe it's possible. And you and I have those things. Have you never thought of a loved one who passed a few years ago? And I had somebody recently, now that I'm thinking about it, was walking in their house, and it's relatively recent, it's a year and a half, and they were talking to the person and still feeling the grief of their passing. They said, you know what? If you can hear me, do something. Right? I won't tell you what it was. It was kind of something between them. And all of a sudden, whoosh, something happened. So there is a sense of that in all of us. We all get those intuitive flashes, but there are some people who come with a little more connection to that. They're already open to listen a little more. So you and I are here because we want our GPS, we want that intuition, which is the best way to get to our goal. I mean, you can go from here to Orlando, right? If you want to go to Disney World, you can take 3 hours direct, right? Or you could take 6 or 10 hours if you go through North Carolina, or you want to go through Virginia, or whatever. You can go a different way, right? That's all up to us. But the GPS of the Creator that's in us, to listen to that voice of the Creator that's in us, is the most direct way, most efficient way, and the most merciful way to get from where we are to that destination of peace and eternal bliss, right? Which is what we all want, what every human being wants. So what makes it so difficult? Why is it we have such a difficulty to listen to that voice? Even you and I, who understand it is the voice of the Creator, and it is telling us the best thing to do. What makes it so difficult? So one is just bad habits. We've habitualized, which is why we did our affirmation. Why do we have to repair our consciousness? Because we've been habitualized to falsehoods, that we're not capable, it's not real. We tell ourselves, how many times that happened? You get that thought and you say, no, that can't be. It's not real. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work that way. So we refuse to listen. But why do we refuse to listen? Because we have that other voice in our head that sounds just like us, that's telling us to do something different. It's called the voice of the opponent. Right? And it's very important, especially if you're new, to understand we have two voices in our head. And the sad part is, or the difficult part is, they both sound like us. Both of them sound like us. The voice of the Creator sounds like us. The voice of the opponent sounds like us. But one is telling us to do the best thing for our highest good and the good of others, the faster way to eternal bliss. The other voice is the one that's telling us, no, be self-centered. Seek right now instant gratification. Seek right now comfort. The trouble is it doesn't tell you what comes with that. Right? It's like so many things that we get, and then there's like a difficult byproduct of that. Isn't it? Okay, I don't want to go there. All right, I have to now that I said it. Isn't it amazing? My father, let's go back to the old days. My father was a pharmacist. And I remember growing up and working in the pharmacy, because in those days I thought I was going to be a doctor. So I used to look at all the medication. And they always came with these little folded papers. And I used to open it up. I remember the first time I opened it, I had no idea what it was. Right? I opened it up, it's all the information, drug information. And it would tell you, this is what it's good for, right? This is what they use this medication for, like this. But then they had a list like this of all the negative side effects. Yeah, still today, I'm just saying. But think about it. When you stop and you think about it, you say, wait a second, who in their right mind, how many of you, okay, don't raise your hands, but how many people really think, yes, the lottery is $100 million, and if I buy a $1 ticket, of course I'm going to win. No, what are the odds? 1 in hundreds of millions. So a lot of people will not buy the ticket because the odds are so far out. Well, what's that? 4 lines of what it's good for and 25,000 lines what the negative side effects are. And yet people unconsciously, and again, I'm not against medicine, I'm not against doctors, so please don't misconstrue this. But it's not going to be the eternal bliss. It's not the eternal answer. It's not lasting transformation. But we've been habitualized to give into it and just follow along. So the same thing, we have been habitualized by that voice of the opponent to seek instant gratification. Just give me what I want now. You're arguing with me, I just want to be right now, so I'll scream and yell and I'll fight and bite until you say I'm right. Now you say I'm right, I walk away for 3 seconds feeling good. And then for the rest of the day, I feel upset what I did to you, how I yelled at you, etc., etc. Right? It's good for this and it's bad for all of this. That's the behavior that the opponent puts in our head. But that's what we mostly listen to. And even when we have a clear vision, our intuition says go this way, our logic and the opponent says go this way, and which do we listen to most of the time? The logic. We're learning more and more how to listen to the intuition because also our experience has taught us which is the right voice. When the intuition is exactly contradictory to the logic, which one is right 99.9% of the time? The intuition. So we know that, but we still have a difficult time because of that voice of the opponent, and it imitates us so well because it's connected more so to what? The body. The body. What does the body want? Really, if you think about it, the body in and of itself, what is it seeking? Instant gratification. It's warm, it wants cool. It's cold, it wants warmth. It's hungry, it wants food. It's thirsty, give me food, give me drink. It wants instant gratification. So the voice of the opponent is hooked into our body consciousness, and it just enhances it. Give me now what I want. Make me feel comfortable in this minute. The voice of the Creator, which is countering that, is no. Go outside. Do the opposite. Don't listen to the voice of the body. Listen to the voice of the soul. Because the soul is the eternal part. The body is the temporal part. But now we've got, you're following that conflict. And it's hard to push ourselves to listen to the voice of the light. But we have the capability. And that's why when you see these people who do have that sixth sense, maybe a little more developed than us, they're showing us our potential. Because the same light of God that gives them that voice is the same light of God in us that gives us that voice. They've just, like other people, there are people who've developed their athletic ability a little more than us, but we have the capability as we train to achieve it also. Or business or relationships or whatever it is. As we will push ourselves and develop ourselves, we achieve things in life. So it's the same thing with our intuition. As we will develop our intuition, then it will also grow. What one person can do on earth, all of us can do something similar because we all have the same light of God. Now it just comes back to the idea of the listening. We have to listen and then we have to follow. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to start connecting to the voice of the Creator? One is just to realize there is a voice of the Creator. So many people don't think so. They hear one voice in their head and then they become confused because, like we said, at one point it goes this way and one point it goes this way. But since it both sounds like us, especially if you're a Libra or maybe a Gemini, maybe a Pisces, right? Because if you look at those signs, they're like dual, right? A little of this, a little of this, so you can be pulled more. I don't know which voice to listen to, but they both sound like mine. So then we have to go to our cosmic guidebook, which is called the 5 Books of Moses. It's a cosmic guide, but we have to understand it Kabbalistically. So how? How are we going to expand our capability to listen to our intuition? So you start with a simple story. Abraham the patriarch. Think of the time that he lived. What was going on in his village, even his father, a tremendous idol worshiper. They worship idols. In fact, his father built idols for people to buy to worship. So what happened to Abraham? He was going along with the program until he got awakened. For whatever reason, the voice inside him started to wake up, like you and I, and he started to think, wait a second, there's only one God. There's only one infinite power. So what did he do? If you know the story, he went into his father's shop, he broke down the idols, he left one, right? And then when his father came in, he said, what happened? He said, well, I don't know. I came in, there was a fight between all the idols, and I guess that one won. And then what did he do? He listened to the voice of God, and what did God tell him to do in order to spread this understanding that there's only one quantum energy we call God? Leave your family, or leave your household, leave your family, go out. Go out and spread the word, and he did. Look what Moses did. Moses, right? He was born into the house of Pharaoh, ruler of the whole known world at that time. So he was basically prince, right? All the power, all the attributes of that, right? All of the privileges he had. And what did he do? He used to walk out among all the slaves. And when he saw one beating the other, what did he do? He stopped it. And because of that, he had to run away. So here he was a prince, and he had to run away from all of his privilege, all that he had, all of his wealth, all of his power. So in our level, what does that mean for us? We have to be willing to also go outside our comfort zone. We have to be willing to share in ways that we're not comfortable sharing, that we don't feel like sharing. But it's the same thing. If you don't go against the feeling of the opponent, then you can't hear the voice of the light, can you? Because there's only those two voices in our head. It's like two radio stations. At least in my lifetime, in America, there was always more than that. But if you go to Israel, back in the time that I was growing up, Israel only had two radio stations, two television stations. So there was only choice, one or the other. So who decided which one they listened to? We did. How you tune. So then it's the same thing. We have two voices in our head. How do we tune ourselves to the voice of the light? We have to shut off the voice of the opponent. So how do we do it? Like Moses did, like Abraham, like all the great sages taught us. You have to go out of your comfort zone for the sake of sharing, to listen to that voice inside you. So think about it. How many of you have somebody that you're holding some resentment towards? A little anger, a little guilt, a little shame, a little remorse. Okay, the rest of you perfect. Some of us, okay, right? We all have some of that. So that's what we have to do. You don't feel like it, I understand. We don't feel like forgiving the person who did that bad thing. But we have to at least get started. I'm sure all of us have maybe 2 or 3 people. So at least start with the one that you hold the least against. I'm not telling you go to the most hated person in your world, but at least start with somebody. Make an effort to go outside yourself to forgive that person. Send the light. If you have the 72 names or the Zohar, scan and send light to those people. I forgive you for what you did. Just send light. What does the opponent tell us when we speak like this? Remember, what does the opponent want? The opponent wants our light as much as we want our light. So it's a battle moment to moment. So when we're thinking, okay, I'm going to send my light of forgiveness to this person, the opponent is going to be right there and say, remember what they did. Why would you want to send them blessing? Why would you want to help them out? So I was inspired by my intuition this morning. This example. Let's say you and that nasty person, you're holding your breath. Okay, you're both holding your breath, and you're looking at them and you're thinking, I'm going to hold my breath because they're holding their breath, right? The same way. They yelled at me, I'm going to yell at them. They did to me, I did to them. They did to me, I'm going to hold that anger and that resentment towards them until they ask for forgiveness. But at some point, maybe they can hold their breath longer than you. And now, you're starting to get that feeling. You're holding your breath, and you're still looking at them. Are you going to breathe? Are you going to breathe? Are you going to breathe? And then I can breathe. Well, at some point, what happens? You breathe. So you breathe, they're holding their breath. Who's breathing? You are. You are. So they want to hold on to their anger. They want to hold on to their resentment. That's them. So the same way, when you breathe, you're breathing. They can hold their breath all they want, but they're the ones who are now suffering. 2 minutes ago, you were the one suffering with them. by sending them the light of forgiveness or the light of apology. Apologize to the people that you've hurt. The same thing. You now have that breath of life. You now have that channel of the light of the Creator that flows through you, and your intuition and your blessings from that are stronger. They can still hold on to their negativity because it's not the two of you. You're not being controlled by them any longer. That's the power we have. But we have to be willing to be forgiving of the people who've hurt us, apologize to the people that we've hurt, be happy for the good that other people get instead of being jealous. Because it's the same thing. All of our negative emotions hold us back, like blocking our spiritual breath, blocking that intuition, and therefore slowing down our capability to get to our destination of heaven on earth, eternal bliss. And that's what we want to keep in mind. We have to open our heart and soul to realize, wait a second, what's my goal? My goal is heaven on earth. I want my peace right now of heaven on earth. I want to move more efficiently towards that. Because as I do that, who do I bring with me? All the like-minded people. And through the like-minded people, ultimately everybody. That's the beauty. Because as the Kabbalists teach us, like attracts like. Like attracts like. That's why when you're sending the light to people, you're awakening the light in them. When a person's sending anger and negativity and resentment out there, then that's what's being awakened in other people. Because like will attract like. So as I make the effort, as each one of us make the effort to go on that path, listening to the voice and moving more effectively and efficiently towards our heaven on earth, then we're going to awaken everybody else to do the same. Like you and I, how did we get here? Because somebody ahead of us made this expanded the energy, increased what we do here in the center. So I was drawn like a beacon, right? Like one of those lighthouses. You're drawn to it. You were brought because there are people before you who did the same thing. So we can turn around and do the same thing. I had a student, I was just thinking of a story. We get those flashes, but we have to learn to listen. So I had a student not long ago who had a business deal. Great opportunity. All they could do was just talk and talk and talk about how this was the most amazing, amazing opportunity they had in all the years in business. But there was something that just didn't feel right. What it was. But again, their logic said, go for it. Everything looked great. Their intuition said, don't go for it. In their case, they were very fortunate. They didn't go for it. About a month later, even though they started to think after a month, maybe they had made the wrong choice. That business seemed to be growing. People were buying new cars and all these things. About a month or two later, the FBI came down on that business and arrested all the people for credit card fraud. That's the way they were making their money. So this person, fortunately, had listened to that intuition, and they avoided being caught up in that. You and I have those things all the time. As we want to expand it, that's where we have to forgive when we don't feel like it. We have to share when we don't feel like it. We have to assist people when we don't feel like it. Because as we go outside our borders now, that's when we can expand the light that we are revealing and the light that we're experiencing. That's why, the old saying, no pain, no gain. Now, we don't want you to be in pain, but you do have to be uncomfortable. Anything that makes you grow has to be uncomfortable, doesn't it? How does a muscle grow? It's got to be uncomfortable. You've got to exert your muscle. How do you give away a pound of excess fat? You've got to make those fat cells cry. Called sweat, right? You got to make them sweat. There's got to be an exertion. Everything worthwhile that's truly lasting fulfillment has to be an effort. You have to exert yourself. So at least we understand now how to exert ourselves. Forgive the unforgivable. Go outside your realm of comfort for the sake of helping others. I think one of the biggest blockages, because many of us may be thinking about, okay, I'm kind of willing, I would like to do that, etc. But again, like the hole in the wall that I was telling you, we have a hole in our head called unworthiness. Unworthiness. We don't feel worthy. And the paradox, who are the people who feel the most unworthy? The spiritual people. That's it. Because as you grow spiritually, you come to understand the laws of the universe. What are we learning here? We're learning here reactive behavior, self-centered ego behavior, even though it's not harmful per se. It's not like violence or thievery, but just that simple act that's give me instant gratification. As we come to understand that's detrimental to us, then right away we start to look, oh, I did that here, I did that here, I did it today, I did it yesterday, and we start to now feel, well, why would God want to help me? Why does God want to help me if I did all these bad things? So go back to the Bible. When the Bible says, and God spoke to Moses, God spoke to Abraham, God spoke to this one, that's the voice of their intuition. That's what it means for us. But remember, God also spoke to evil people. There was one we spoke about, I think, a week ago or so, Jethro. He was at the time the priest, the high priest of idol worship. But because he had the mindset, he wanted to find the truth, then the voice of the Creator spoke to him. He heard that intuition. And he went out to go meet Moses and all the Israelites out near Mount Sinai in the desert on their way towards immortality. There was another guy, one of the most wicked sorcerers in history. All he had to do was curse people and they would basically die. Anything that he cursed fell apart. And yet he also came to the point, if you read in the Bible, he said, wait a second. Some people came and asked him to do more cursing. And he must have reached that point where he's feeling a little bit of the light inside of him, so he felt a little uncomfortable. He said, you know what? I can only do what God tells me to do. And then he asked God for a message, and it says during the night, God came to him and told him, no, you don't go with those. You go with them, but you don't curse. You do what I tell you. And he went. So if those people, as bad and evil as they were, can have the voice of God speak to them, then you and I should feel more than worthy to be spoken to. Because remember, God already put that voice in our soul. It's already there. The spiritual GPS is just waiting for us to activate it. But in the unworthiness, we block it. It's not that the voice shuts off. The voice of God never shuts off. It's only we stop listening. We block ourselves so focused how unworthy we are. But I heard a very nice metaphor that I want to share with you. $100. Anybody would like to have a $100 bill if I had it? Right? Well, I'll like it. But what if I told you this $100 bill was all crumpled and I crumple it up like this and I really trash it like that? Would you still want it? Oh, what if I put it in the mud and I roll it in the mud and it's all dirty? Do you still want it? What if I tell you somebody used this to deal drugs or to use drugs or whatever, would you still want it? You follow? The $100 doesn't change its value just because what it's been through. So the same with us. We are pure and perfect beings of light. It doesn't matter that we've done negative things or we've reacted or we're still holding guilt or resentment. We are still the most valuable entities on this earth. That's why it tells us we are created at the pinnacle of creation. God created everything else, and on the sixth day, at the end of the creation of this world, came human beings. Because we're the pinnacle. We're the totality. We are basically envelop every form of life and every form of energy on this planet. We are extremely valuable, no matter what we've done. We just have to work to clean ourselves up, dust ourselves off, listen to that voice of the Creator, and move forward. I just want to share with you before we close, because tonight, I hope I'll get through this, tonight and tomorrow is the death anniversary of one of my brothers. He passed in 1994. But the point I want to share is the whole idea of the intuition. Because some of you know that the leaders of the center, Rav Berg and Karen Berg, they started the mission to bring the Kabbalah to the world, to every human being. Even though before that, the tradition was you only teach it to certain people, they, once the Rav's teacher passed, Rav Brandwein, who was a great Kabbalist up to that point, and he gave the center and the mission of the center over to Rav Berg, and he brought Karen into it, which is why we have centers. So those two people, of anyone I know, have the most developed intuition. So back in 94, I was living in New York. I had just got married. My wife was pregnant, and we were moving to LA to teach in LA. So we were going to pack our stuff. We were going to put it in a car. We were going to tow a van because the center in LA needed another car. So we were going to drive across country. I mean, she was only pregnant. We didn't have kids, so it was an easier thing. And I'm plotting and planning how we're going to go. So on a Wednesday, I got paged, because back in those days, there were no cell phones. So I get a page, call the office. So I call the office, and Karen, receive this message. You're flying to New York or to LA on Friday. Okay, so I learned. If Karen got the message, like we're learning, that intuition, you listen. Karen listened, I'm learning to listen. So we pack up our stuff, we arrange everything, we fly in on Friday. Friday we arrive in LA, we spend the Sabbath, Friday night and Saturday with our friends. Sunday, it's my time. Back then we used to go out door to door, knocking on doors to introduce Kabbalah to people. So I'm out in the San Fernando Valley, and I hadn't been back in LA, which is where I grew up, for almost 7 years now. My brother, the one I'm telling you about, he lived in Northern California, and for years before that he was battling cancer. He'd go into remission, then he'd go cancer again, and remission, and this and that, and whatever it was. So I hadn't seen him in 7 years. So I'm in the San Fernando Valley, and as I'm knocking door to door, all of a sudden I get also this intuition. Go see your aunt, because my aunt lived not far from where I was, and I hadn't seen her in 7 years since I moved from LA to New York. So as I'm sharing with you, fortunately for me, I learned to listen, and I just went to the car, drove right to my aunt's house in San Fernando Valley, and who was there? My brother. This was a Sunday. My brother's there. He looks like death warmed over, all right? But he came for a visit, and in 15 minutes, he was going to the airport to go back home. So we spent those 15 minutes together, caught up a little bit, whatever time we had. He left, and that Tuesday he died. So had Karen not got the message and listened to it, had I not received the message and listened to it, I would have never seen my brother before he passed. So as I share this with you, the point is to understand, as we'll do the work, the voice of the Creator will be loud. It will be there, and it will bring you things. Because I had no idea. I didn't know my brother was at that point, right? And I certainly didn't know he was at my aunt's house. But that spiritual GPS, as we understand it, it's a partnership. Aren't you? And physically, we're in partnership with it, aren't we? You don't have all the maps in your head. The GPS has that. You have to plug into it. It plugs into you. It shares with you the directions. You follow the directions. So when we plug into the intuition, it's the same thing. It will tell us what to do. Our part is to listen. And as we will do that, we will change our lives and the people around us. So today, it just takes a few simple things. One, surrender. Surrender to the light of the Creator. Let yourself listen to the voice and follow that voice. Because as we listen to that voice, that's only the voice of God. It knows what's best for us. It wants what's best for us. And it may not go the route we think is the best, but it's going to be the best for us. And as we all learn to listen and we follow that voice, then each and every one of us individually will move another step into our heaven on earth, our eternal bliss. And as we keep making those steps, we're going to draw everybody else with us. And it will not have to be long before you and I are the ones who are making manifest for us and for the world, heaven on earth. God bless.